everyone. Welcome to Hospitality Today Live. I'm Deborah Gardner, your host for HTL, and I am so delighted to be back with you here on Tuesday, the same time every week. And boy, we are just having a great time on this show, a great year with some fantastic guests that are so knowledgeable in sharing anything and everything that they want to talk about. That's what's so great about this show. And today, I have someone very special that has a true passion for what they do. I'm talking about the founder of Meeting Professionals Against Human Trafficking, Sandy Biback, who is with us today all the way from Toronto, Canada. And I tell you, Sandy, again, has a true passion to end human slavery. So today, she is here to help us become more aware of what is going on with human trafficking worldwide and what you can do about it as well. She's got real life stories that actually are happening in your backyard, along with what can venues like hotels and convention centers, what can they do about all this as well? I know you cannot wait to meet her as much as I am, because it's going to be a very serious and fantastic segment. So don't go far. We'll be right back with Sandy Biback. Welcome back, everyone. Today's episode is sponsored by Visibly Media, helping businesses communicate strategically in print and online. Visiblymedia.com. Well, thank you all for joining us today here on Hospitality Today Live. And we have a great guest who I have been waiting practically all year for. We're talking about Sandy Biback. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, I'm really pleased to be here. And thank you, Deborah, for the opportunity.
Absolutely, because I was so thrilled that you were willing to be on this show, because I tell you what, this is probably one of the most serious and most needed topics to be discussed than probably anything that we have shown in the last 2 years on this show. So I'm so glad that you are here. And we're going to be talking about human trafficking in the hospitality industry and worldwide. And so I want to first of all ask you, how did you get started in becoming such an advocate for human trafficking?
I truly believe that kernels turn into programs. I was fortunate enough to go to Cambodia probably 5 years ago now, 6 years ago now. And I saw things I wasn't sure about. And I started asking our guide. And when I came home, I did some checking and research, and was fortunate enough to contact the head of human trafficking division for Toronto Police. And I can't remember how I got to Nunzio, but I met with him and he said, this is happening in every hotel in our city in Toronto, from the 1-star to the 5-star. And I just went, no. And he said, let me prove it to you. And he did. And one thing just led to another. I decided to host a breakfast. We didn't even have a name at that point, and we hosted a breakfast. And all my years in the hospitality industry, nobody would give me space in their hotel. And I said, I'm going to pay for it. Nope, we don't want any of that here. And so I went to a graduate student of mine, and she is the lead event planner at a church here in Toronto. And we got their space. And we had hoped for 15 people. We had 40 show up. And that was the beginning. And we're almost 5 years old now. And I had no idea this was going to go as far as it has. We had a board meeting last night, and I was blown away with our future plans. Wow. And that's how it started. And I have learned so much. I've also learned that I am not going to wipe out human trafficking.
Right.
And it is one step at a time. And
Sure.
awareness.
Sure. Well, and I learned from it when you were speaking at an event long time ago, getting this awareness out there. And I was so intrigued with the statistics, the stats, and to know that this is even happening when I was working in the hotel industry. And I was just even looking something up recently on the HUD-house.gov website that said 21 to 30 million people. We're talking about not only kids, men and women too, are enslaved in the world today. And although I'm in the US, it said that right now there are over 60,000 current victims just in my US states right now. I can't even imagine what it's in Canada, but that's crazy, crazy numbers.
Mm-hmm. And it's not all sex trafficking. In fact, that's the one that gets the most exposure. A lot of it is labor trafficking, and that can happen in a hotel too, or convention center, especially now where a lot of it is outsourced. So you're outsourcing your housekeeping, you're outsourcing your food and beverage. So it's not, it also includes marriages, forced marriages. So it is a huge spectrum. Polaris lists it, polarisproject.org lists it, I think, at about 25 or 26 different types.
Wow.
Obviously, the sex trafficking gets the biggest, and it is probably the biggest that's going on within the hotels, unless you start to get into supply chain, where it breaks right down to who's picking the coffee that your guests are drinking.
Right. And most of our viewers are in the hospitality industry. And I know there's going to be some people coming on with some comments and even questions for you. And we really want to take advantage of that because I know we're on a very short schedule here. But I know that with your background and all the research that you have done has been so admirable for us here in the hospitality industry. Can you tell us when, from what I'm hearing, especially when we're talking about hotel venues, that's, I think, one of the number one targets that these human traffickers go after. They say, as long as there's a venue, a freeway, and the internet, there's human trafficking going on. So can you give us some strategies or steps that these human traffickers do so we can become more aware of this?
First of all, the traffickers, basically they lure people, and I'm going to use girls, but please understand that it's boys, it's trans, it's older women, but I will use the term girls. So what'll happen is a lot of young people today don't have a lot of self-confidence. I know when I was 12, 13 years old, I didn't have a lot of self-confidence. I didn't have malls to hang out in. I didn't have the internet to go to and say, everybody hates me, I hate my parents. And this is what the trafficker looks for. They profile the girls, just like you see on TV when, the FBI is profiling the bad person. That's exactly what the traffickers do. So let's say they're in a mall or they've gotten you on Facebook or something like that. And then what'll happen is they'll start to talk to you. They'll start to say you're beautiful. They'll start to say, I really like you. And I'm going to use the mall reference because it's a little bit easier to understand. And they'll do that. And if you're in a mall where there's the high-end stores, they'll say, oh yeah, wouldn't you just really like to be able to afford X? I'll buy it for you. So they do. They get to know the person. They get to know their likes, their dislikes, what they're doing in school, if they're in school. They could be a homeless youth, which is sadly, quite a lot of them are. What do they know about their families? Do they have a dog? Do they have a brother? All these kinds of things. So they really get to know them. And the person being trafficked says, oh my God, they really like me. And then it becomes the next step where they say, you know what? I love you. Let's do life together. And so they will then say, well, I've given you these clothes. I've gotten you your hair done, your manicured and pedicured and all that good stuff, new makeup. Now I need you to do something for me. And you probably had sex with them already. I need you to have sex with my best friend. And as the victim, you're probably saying, no, I'm not doing that. And that's when the trafficker will start to say, if you don't, I will hurt your dog. I will tell your parents, and so on and so forth. So they do that and they say, okay, I'm never going to have to do it again. And that's when they start to beat them down and beat down their confidence. I'm talking about their emotional stability. And it's like, if you don't do this for me, I'm throwing you out on the street and I'm taking back all the clothes and I'm telling your parents, I'm going to kill your dog, all that kind of stuff. And it's called trauma bonding. And from there, the girl gets more and more involved. He may put her on drugs if she isn't already. We work with a survivor whose trafficker said if she went on drugs, she's not worth as much money. And if she would have gone on drugs, he would have beaten her. And if the girls don't do what they're told to do, don't turn 12 to 15 tricks a day, they are beaten, food's withheld from them, a shower's withheld from them, sleep is withheld from them. So you can see how it's a never-ending cycle. And then they may start to trick them out to 5-star hotels. And yes, it does happen. And then as they become worn down, they're tricked out to the 1-star hotels or the restaurant stops on the highways and so on. And ultimately, some of these girls become those that go out and find new victims because it means they don't have to do as much tricks as before. And the money's turned right over to the trafficker. The girl sees nothing.
Wow.
And that's essentially how it happens for the most part. So you're not going to see, they will brand the girls, but not in a visible spot. A lot of them have tattoos of their trafficker. And that's, you carry that with you. We have a young survivor here in Toronto who has a project called Project I Rise. And one of her projects is getting these tattoos removed from the girls.
Yeah.
And there's lots of stuff going on in that area. There's good stuff going on too. And, I'm often asked, why doesn't the girl just leave? My response to that, and that, funnily enough, often comes from hospitality students that I speak to. My response to that is, you've got a 35-year-old woman who's in a domestic violence and she can't leave, but you're expecting a 14-year-old to leave.
Yeah, right. Right. Wow. That's heartbreaking. And your analogy for the mall is where most people can relate it, unless you're in the hospitality industry. And yet, when you see these people talking to young girls, which they do young boys too, what are the indicators? What are the red flags that are different than maybe they're with their parents? Because I know I would get that confused, thinking, is that a parent or is that really a trafficker?
Yeah. Excuse me.
Because it's, spotting a victim in public is tough.
Well, first of all, if you do spot a victim, don't ever approach them. Don't ever approach the trafficker. Don't ever approach the John. You put the victim in danger and you put yourself in danger.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's where I think the resources come in play, which that's where our cell phones can really help out.
Yes.
I know there's a couple apps out there that I think, there's this one called that's really powerful, Stop the Traffic. It's the report incident app that you can right away report, or you can call 911 or contact.
It depends on
security.
where you are. It depends on where you are in the world. Okay. And what I would suggest is that I know I have the Canadian hotline number in my phone, so I can do that. But there is, I think it's called globalslave.org. I can't remember exactly. I can get it to you later, where you can go on there and find out what the protocol is in pretty much every country in the world. Oh. So if you're a planner and you're taking your event outside of US, Canada, or Mexico, you can find out what it is. Okay. I will find it and send it to you.
Yeah, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. And well, actually, we've got some of your fans here today that want to say hello. Oh. Mary Jo wants to say hello to you.
Hi, Mary Jo. Hi.
David Kleiman is with us as well. He's thanking you because you know him very well. As a matter of fact, he's going to be on later this month.
I know.
And then Randall, who I adore and always hear, a big fan of the show. Your stories are incredible. And he's right. The parents must build self-confidence in their kids and let them know about this to be more aware of it, no matter what organization.
I think for parents too, know what your kids are doing on social media. The fact
Yeah,
that you
that's
think your
another
kid won't do
area.
anything, not true. And in today's world with COVID, more and more stuff is happening online. We also know that domestic violence and sex trafficking has risen because of all of this.
Sure.
But if you're working in a hotel, your front desk is usually where you would see them. We know that most hotel um, chains and flags have some kind of training. It's 90% of it is online, where you would, check the boxes. What we're saying is go further, have conversations with your front desk and your food and beverage and your housekeeping. Have those conversations because it becomes more personal.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's a lot of what we do when we can't do that so easily now. We would go into the individual hotels, and have conversations.
Right.
So, I mean, what's the chain of command? If the front desk sees something, what's the chain of command for them to do something? And the hotel culture is really important. That hotel culture has to be one, I don't care what the flag is, that says we're not tolerating this.
That's a very good one. Very good one. Well, we've got also here, Lisa Raymond is on. That's a good point about social media. Instagram finally had to admit to our US Congress some of the posts the platform suggests usually do more harm than
Yeah.
good, especially toward teen girls. So I'm sure you agree to that as well. It's very, very important. But yeah, I find that technology is in the human traffickers' hands what they need to have done to lure these girls or boys in. But technology for us to stop it should be helpful too. I know there's an app that you introduced a while ago that you can have on your phone, like if you're in a hotel,
Yeah,
for
trafficking.
example, there's a database that they're
Yeah.
collecting so they can identify where that victim is by you just going into your hotel room and taking a picture of the curtains, the bedspread, the carpet, and submit that every time you're in a hotel room. And I thought that was brilliant
Yeah.
because they're going to have to keep up because hotels do, remodel their rooms. So that database at least gives an idea of where that victim is if that victim has time to take pictures of where they're at. So I thought that was a brilliant
Well,
idea.
it's done by Traffic Cam.
Okay.
And it's actually was started by somebody within our own industry, and I can't remember the name of the company. Has been very recognizable in the States, in the US. And what it does is many of these girls are filmed in hotel rooms. So again, it's that profiling, just like you see on the FBI. It's the profiling of, oh, this is familiar. The one thing I caution people to do is make sure you're not in the picture when you take it. If you're looking at the bathroom and the mirror, there's often a reflection. So, and they do ask you, they say, are you sure you want to submit this? So you have an opportunity to close it out. But I've been in hotels both in the US and Canada where it said that there have been photos submitted just recently. Now, they don't tell you if there's ever been an incident, but you can know in some of them, I know there's been incidents.
Right. Well, so I mean, 4 pictures. That's all you have to do is take 4 pictures every time you're in a hotel or convention center or something, just to put it over to the database. You're doing your part. You're being responsible. And I'm a big believer, with great power, there comes responsibility. And I believe in the hospitality industry is where most of this is happening. Why not, be part of the solution to something that is important to this? So, but yeah, I think the key here is trying to identify who is luring young kids and who's not. I would imagine if you're in an elevator somewhere, if they're not talking or giggling like young children do, would be an indication, right?
Yeah, but it's more than that. Let's say you come up to the front desk and somebody else, you know how you have to show your ID, somebody else shows your ID, or this is a person that is probably 14 or 15. And you get this gut feeling. Once you've been doing this for a while, you start to understand the gut feeling. And maybe the person is dressed, she's 14 or 15 by her ID, but she's dressed like she's 18 or 19. And she lowers her head and she doesn't look you in the eye and she doesn't say a word. And she maybe doesn't even have a backpack or anything with her. Although we did hear from a director of security that one of the things they're doing now is they're bringing in the roller bag because it has extra sheets and extra towels. So they no longer have to bother housekeeping for that, which is another key that housekeeping says, oh, they're asking for a lot of sheets. And then they leave with that roller bag filled with the sheets and the extra towels, also used condoms and needles. So they're not in the room. And they move around. It could be every day, could be every other day, depends on what's going on. And they have their own automatic telegraph that tells them who's happening, who's getting caught, where should we be, where shouldn't we be. And I mean, it's very sophisticated. And if you think about it, a lot of it is organized crime. A lot of it isn't. But if you think about it, if you're a drug dealer, you can get rid of those drugs, but then you have to find more drugs. If you're a human trafficker and you're selling girls, boys, or trans for sex, you can reuse the product time and time and time again. And that to me is the sad part. So you know what? If you're in our industry, if you're a planner, ask about it before you book a venue for your event. Put it in your RFPs, put it in your contracts. If you work in a property, find out what training there is if you haven't already had it, and how can you improve on that training? How can you actually have conversations 2-3 times a year? Because this is so much more than checking the boxes. And if you're a student, when you go out and look for a job, ask what that property or that venue or that meeting planning company is doing to help in the battle of human trafficking. These are easy steps. These are easy steps, and easy steps create change.
Wow. That is great advice right there. It is all about having the conversation, and we are not having that. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that is going to be key. And I think that's going to tell, especially when you're interviewing somewhere like you were mentioning, that you are in the know and you want to help at the same time. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. So what should venues, what should hotels, what should convention centers, what should they, even malls, what should they be doing on their part? You mentioned it has to do with the culture. What do they need to do to help improve this area? If they're already having the training, what more can they do to stop it? Because as we know, AI is starting to take over. There's going to be a lot more touchless points to check into a hotel or go somewhere. How do we work around that?
So if you're front desk and you you have, touchless, when you walk into the hotel, you don't have to go to the front desk anymore.
Right.
Have that front desk be looking around the lobby. Do they see something suspicious? I am actually opposed to that, because I think if your front desk is trained, if they understand it, if it is acceptable to the culture of that hotel, that if a front desk person sees something, they say something. Mm-hmm. It becomes innate. So I'm seeing this. If there's something going on here, I'm going to talk to my manager, who'll probably talk to director of security. But if it's touchless check-in, I don't see everybody checking in. And yeah, there's cameras around. We all know that. But sometimes when you look at the camera, it's too late.
Right.
So have people milling around the lobby. Have your front desk milling around the lobby. Can I help you? And that same sort of innate, this doesn't look right feeling can still happen. One of my biggest things is getting on the elevators where you push the 4th floor and that's the only floor it'll go to. What if somebody else gets on that floor and they're creepy and they say, oh, I'm also going to 4. If I feel they're creepy, I can't get off that elevator. Mm-hmm. I am so opposed to that. Mm-hmm. I can't get off that elevator. Mm-hmm. And as somebody once said to me, but there's videos in the elevator. Mm-hmm. Well, that doesn't help me if I've already been beaten. Mm-hmm. Or if that person followed me and got off at the floor and followed me.
Right.
So I think it's huge awareness. It's huge. Maybe do some scenarios. Practice scenarios. I'm not saying in your lobby, maybe you do them elsewhere. Have a really good relationship with the police. Understand that if there's a big conference coming into town or a big football game or whatever, that's when the traffickers go after the delegates. And I mean, there's been issues at sporting games where I can be sitting in my seat and I can go to my phone and I can ask for somebody, and you ask for what you want, by the way. And then you'll get a notice saying, meet me at XYZ exit or whatever. And so they know that there's a big game in town and they ramp up, just like there's more hot dogs for sale.
Right. Right. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, David Kleiman is actually saying this. He's like, what are your thoughts about mobile hotel check-ins? And he's right. The hotel keys are going to be changing more than ever. And it's going to allow them easier access. So he's right about this.
I won't use it. I don't
Yeah.
use it. To answer David's question, Biback just interviewed me a couple of months ago on this whole issue. And I just, to me, I want to see that person at the front desk, because what is hospitality if not about seeing people and meeting people? I don't think it's any safer. I think it's worse. And yeah, I don't want to walk around with a clunky key, and you still get them in Europe in some places. But I want to know that that hotel person saw me at the front desk. I make my reservations, if I can, by actually calling a hotel directly. And you'd be surprised the conversations I've had. They've been really cool. And it's a different, it's a one-on-one. And I just don't believe in not checking in at the front desk personally.
Yeah. That's going to be tough to convince. But why not put the question out there then? What is the alternative to help this human trafficking to stop, luring young children to hotel venues?
It's not going to. As long as they can make money. I think how it'll stop, there's two ways. And I know the Ontario government is doing one of them. I can't remember when it's coming into play. Children in public schools will be educated to their knowledge level. I mean, you're not going to talk to an 8-year-old the same as you will a 15-year-old. That's one. So educating the kids really young. The other one, and it's not coming into play, but I wish it would, is the Johns. They need to be taken to task. They're not. There's nothing that says a John can't go out and look for trouble. Right. And the other one is that, and it depends on where you live, the girls need to be considered, boys or trans, need to be considered victims, not prostitutes. I know that in Canada, they're not considered prostitutes. They are considered victims, because if they're prostitutes, they lose. First of all, it's very degrading to them. And because they're not in this because they want to be, and they lose so much if they come out of it. They can't get a bank account. They can't get credit. They can't redo their lives. And there are a lot of groups that are working with that right now, some worldwide, some strictly in Canada, some in the US, where these girls and boys and trans are going to be able to revive their lives. I was at a United Nations Women's Trust program 4 years ago where I was on a panel, and they had a young woman who came out of human trafficking, and all she said was, I want to be treated like a human being.
Wow. That's pretty powerful.
Yep.
That's amazing. That is incredible. Well, I know that we really appreciate all that you do to bring this awareness to our level, because I would have never known this unless I learned this from you. And Mary Jo, who totally agrees, yes, we must keep sharing these stories to create more awareness. And she's right. That's the only thing we can do, is keep putting it out there so people are more aware of it. So in your perspective then, Sandy, what would it be like, in this world, if it was free of human slavery? What would it look like in the hospitality industry? If that
prices would go up. There's no doubt about it.
Prices would go up.
Yeah. If you take away child labor, and you paid somebody a living wage in the country that they're living in, the price of that coffee is going to go up, because instead of being paid a pittance or being paid nothing, let's say the living wage in a coffee bearing country is $6 an hour. So they can upgrade themselves. So the price of that coffee, and as a planner, we always complained about the price of an urn of coffee.
Right.
Going to go up. Okay. The cost of many of your wares are going to go up, like the shirts and your bedding and all of that. And we would be able to live, there would be less disease, there would be less mental illness. And that would be very Pollyanna, because honestly, Deborah, I don't think it's going to happen, not in my lifetime. I think if we each tell 3 people, they don't have to be in our industry, but tell 3 people, and those 3 people tell 3 people, it's the ripple effect.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hopefully having you on our show today will definitely help get people start thinking and start being more aware through our travels, instead of being completely, isolated on what is going on around us than ever before, just by having you here on this show. So, and I know some people really want to stay in touch with you and get even more information. So I'm going to put up here how they can contact you by your email and your website. Are there any other areas or ways that they can get in touch with you?
You can find us me personally, on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter. And Pat, we've got space on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. And I'm very grateful for our team that looks after all of that stuff for us.
Right.
So we're everywhere.
Right. Well, keep up the great work. There is no doubt there's no one better to do this and take on this advocacy than you. You're the wise and experienced one in our hospitality industry, has done it all. And I just think this is one area that definitely needs attention to. And I hope and only want you have more success with it than ever before. So hopefully, again, being on this show here at HTL has helped as well. So thank you so much, Sandy, for sharing these stories, statistics, and what we should be doing in the hospitality industry.
Thanks for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. We'll see you again soon.
Take care.
Well, there you go. I hope that you really enjoyed listening to what Sandy had to share, because again, this is something very, very serious that needs 100% attention to in our industry and throughout the world. Human slavery has to stop. And it's not something that we should be tolerating at all. Zero tolerance is what needs to happen with human slavery. And if you can just make that one difference, maybe it's having that app on your phone and taking pictures in the hotel room to let the database build up, so we can make a difference in saving one child. Or maybe it's contacting Sandy again and having more of an in-depth conversation with her and providing some ideas for training within your organization or company. Either way, it's just a matter of being more aware. And this is something that's very easy to do because most of us travel in the hospitality industry, so we should be more aware of it. And I'm just so glad that she was able to share what she was able to share, because again, with great power, there is responsibility. And I believe everyone should be able to be involved in helping in something as simple as this, just to save a life. So again, thank you so much for being with us. If you want to take this episode as an example and share it with others, because we do have the replay on all your social media favorite platforms. So take it, learn from it, share it with others, and you will be glad that you did. So thank you so much again for sharing all of this, all our episodes with those in your company and organization as well. And if you want to, my gosh, we'd love to hear what you'd like to hear or see or want to learn in 2022. So we are taking some definitely some ideas from each and every one of you. And if you want to be a sponsor as well, we have room for that in 2022 as well. So who do we have next week? Well, we have Tanya Edinger. She actually has been in the industry for 20 years, and she is the CEO of Wedding and Events of PGH. And we're talking about Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She's actually better known as the Pittsburgh Wedding and Luxury Event Concierge. And what Tanya's going to share with us is what is her experience has been as one of the top planners for weddings and events, and how you can set yourself apart as well. She's also going to share with us how she defines luxury in the hospitality industry and what's trending for the new year, and so much more. That's going to be next Tuesday, December 22nd, and we'd love for you to join us then as well. So thank you again for joining us here on Hospitality Today Live. I'm Deborah Gardner. And remember, if you're thinking about it, we're talking about it right here on HTL. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you for joining us.